Would you like to argue less with your partner? Would you like to share more intimacy in your relationships? What if there were a simple change that you could apply to your life that would not only allow you to argue less with your partner, but would enhance greater intimacy and trust in your relationships? In this video, I'm going to share a secret that will allow you to do just that and much more. Hi, my name is Richard L. Haight. I'm the best-selling author of The Unbound Soul. The Unbound Soul was just awarded one of the best books on consciousness of all time by booksauthority.org. I'm also a master of samurai arts and healing arts in Japan. Through my training, I received a great wisdom that I'd like to share with you. Before we begin the content of this video, I'd also like to offer you a free 1-month trial of the Warrior's Meditation. The samurai had developed over thousands of years secret techniques of awareness that can be used during active life, unlike other meditations. These meditations, these methods of awareness transform the way your perception works, the way that you interact with your life, the way that you interpret. It will create greater efficiency and greater peace in your life. Go ahead and click the link below or in the description to begin your 1-month free trial. Enter August 2019 as the promo code or discount code so you can get that free discount. Hope to see you there. And now on to the content of this video. What is it that causes us to frequently argue with our partners, even when we know that we shouldn't? And what is it that causes us to lose intimacy over time with our partners? I would suggest in large part, it's the same phenomenon that is causing the arguments as well as the loss of intimacy. You see, what's happening in our lives is that we are suffering from our very strength as human beings. The very thing that allows us to function efficiently in the world is what is causing us to have strife in our relationships. If we consider how we develop as individuals, we're born with pure perception, which means perception, yet without any ability to interact with the world. We have no functionality. We just simply have senses that are perceiving, not necessarily understanding what is being perceived, nor is there an ability necessarily to interact with what is being perceived. And so what the brain does is it develops what we could describe as shortcuts. And these shortcuts allow us to, these are kind of habits, these allow us to develop techniques and refine our motion, refine our interaction with the world. They are ultimately what allow us to function. If we think about how we learn to walk, all that's happening is at a motor cortex level, we've developed movement shortcuts that allow us to, kind of techniques that allow us to be able to move. You can think about this in terms of learning how to write physically, how to write with a pen. When you first learned how to write, you had no idea how to do it. You had to really concentrate and be very, very present, just trying to get your hand to behave itself so that you could sketch out what you saw in the letters, in your little booklet. But now you write in such a way you don't even have to think about it. You just as you are thinking about what you want to write, your hand just behaves itself. And the only reason that occurs is because you have developed highly refined shortcuts or habits, movement habits, and other types of thinking habits, emotional habits. These are all shortcuts that allow you to function in the world without having to think too much. And there's a reason why the brain has to do this. The brain is it is the single most intensive organ, energy consuming organ in the human body. It consumes about 25% of your calories per day. And so in order for your brain to be able to function and not consume too many calories, it needs to take these shortcuts. And also in order to save you time. If you had to think about constantly how just to walk, you would not get anywhere. In fact, part of what your intelligence is the efficiency of the shortcuts you have made throughout your life is part of what creates your intelligence. The problem with these shortcuts is that not only are we applying them to our language, to writing, to walking, to talking, and so many other things, we are applying these shortcuts in our relationships to save time. And what that means is we are assuming things. Shortcuts are essentially assumptions. We are making assumptions about other people. The reason we're arguing with them oftentimes is because we are assuming their motivations, their intentions. We're assuming what they're thinking without necessarily even questioning our assumptions. And this, of course, is going to create it creates a kind of illusion or projection on the other person that may or may not be accurate. Now, of course, none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. If your husband, didn't take out the garbage as he said he would, maybe he was busy doing something he shouldn't have been doing and didn't get around to it or put it off or whatever. Maybe he just forgot. We don't know what his actual reasons are. Maybe he told us the truth about it, or maybe he told a fib. Oftentimes we may be a little bit frustrated, we may be tired, and the more tired we are, the more likely we are going to rely on shortcuts, and the more likely we're going to make assumptions about other people because our brain is tired, and shortcuts are seductive. It's a habit that our brain has. And so what ends up happening is over time there develops a distrust as we've projected falsehoods on our partner, and as they've done the same to us. As we lose patience with them. And that kills intimacy, because intimacy is based heavily on trust. Of course, that also creates lots of arguments. And it might take us to a point where we no longer argue at all because we just don't want anything to do with our partners. We're not communicating at all anymore. There's peace in the house, but it is not a joyous or intimate peace. You're basically living in the house separately. The trick and the secret to overcoming this lack of intimacy and the arguments is to stop relying on shortcuts in your communications with your partners. Of course, this means you're going to have to slow down your communication. And that's probably the last thing you're going to want to do when you're tired or when you're in a rush, is to slow down. You're going to be heavily seduced to make use of those shortcuts, to make assumptions and projections, because that seems quick. It's expedient. But in the long run, it's the slow path. In the long run, it's a dead end. Our relationships, as we gain more trust in our relationships, they work more efficiently. Our partner will be there for us just as we'll be there for them more often if there's trust and intimacy in the relationship. And that will take time to develop. And that may take time to recover if it's been lost. The first step to recovery is to first notice that you have been using shortcuts, not only on your partners and other people in the world, but on yourself. See, not only do you maybe not understand your partner's motivations and why they are or not cooperating with us, but you might not be understanding your own motivations. You see, we might not nearly be as aware of our own motivations and intentions as we think we are. Just as you may not understand the intention of your partner or others, and we may tend to paint them negatively, we tend to paint our own motivations and intentions positively when they might not actually be so positive. If you think about it, when you're projecting on your opponent, when you're projecting on your partner, who has become your opponent, you're projecting malice on them. You are the one that's sort of being the bully. You're assuming things about them that may or may not be accurate. You're assuming you know things, you know their thinking, and you know their intentions. And that is putting you on the offensive. What is the intention behind that? Is it love? Maybe not so much. Expedience, surely. There's frustration, surely. There's probably exhaustion. But there isn't grace. There isn't the same generosity that you might have been applying to yourself. So there's something wrong with the motivation if you think about it. So the first step is to notice when we're being very generous with ourselves, but not so generous with other people, and to start to become a little bit more flexible, slow down, question our own intentions and motivations, and wonder, maybe I'm not so generous person. Maybe I'm behaving this way not out of love. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I'm frustrated. Maybe I'm annoyed and I'm venting. Maybe all of my assumptions are false. Maybe the assumptions that I have of this person are completely wrong, and maybe they're coming from a good place, or maybe they're just tired. Maybe they need a rest. Maybe they're not feeling well. Maybe there's already not trust in the relationship and they're tired of me nagging at them all the time. There's a number of things that could be going on that cause us resistance in our relationships. And the way to do this is to physically start practicing not using shortcuts. So you might, if you've ever learned how to type, you might remember when you first learned how to type, how much you had to look at the keyboard and think about where each finger had to go, and you had to program it in. And it might have taken you several months to program that in, but once it was programmed in, you just type and you think, and it just comes out, and you don't have to, assuming you programmed it well. Well, you've programmed a lot of shortcuts in well with your relationships. Some of them aren't so healthy. A lot of the assumptions you have might not be accurate, but they come out unconsciously. And so just as you were learning to type, how you had to do it very conscientiously, when you're in communication with your partner, you have to be very aware. You have to slow down, and you have to ask what's really going on in yourself and others. Not, why didn't you take out the garbage? Not like that. But, honey, are you okay? Are you feeling tired? That kind of ask to find out what's going on. I noticed you didn't take out the garbage. Did you forget about it? Or are you feeling tired? That kind of thing. And it'll create a sense of generosity. And we can do the same thing with ourselves to find out what's going on in our inner realm. The truth be told, that what I describe as the awakening process is largely awakening to the shortcuts that we've programmed in that are no longer serving. They may serve in certain areas of our life, but they may not serve in others. And largely the awakening process is just waking up to what is serving us and what is no longer serving, and how our subconscious mind has gained so much momentum, and that we're basically going through our lives in a kind of autopilot, assuming we're much more consciously aware than we actually are. If we want to develop intimacy and trust in our relationships, we have to be consciously aware in those relationships, don't we? And so spend a little time physically reprogramming some movement. You might every day, just a few minutes, try right. If you're right-handed, try writing with your left hand. If you're left-handed, try writing with your right hand, just to stretch your brain out. It's going to cause your brain to have to actually become a little more elastic, to stretch out. It's going to cause you to slow down and be very aware of your movement. In the same sense, slow down in your relationship. Slow down when you're in communication with your partner, and really ask them questions, and ask yourself as well, what are you projecting? Might it be the opposite of what you think? Might you be assuming something? Ask them what they mean by the words they're saying. And a good way to ask what they're meaning. So if they say something to you that seems a little offensive, well, you didn't take out the garbage last week. You just repeat, I didn't take out the garbage last week. Just repeat it. Just like that, not defensively, just repeat it like that. And they will explain a little bit more. And now you're getting a communication going. Now, yeah, you didn't take it out last week. Why didn't you take it out? You said you would. I said I would. Yes, you did. Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry. I should have. I didn't realize I had done that. Maybe I was tired. Or, now you get into a real conversation, but without defensiveness. Try to be as honest as possible, because that's what's going to develop the trust. Even if what you did wasn't so good, even if what you did wasn't so honest, try to be as honest as possible, because that's the only way that the other person will develop trust in you again, and the only way you'll develop trust in them. And if you give that inch of honesty, and it might take a little while, because sometimes our relationships can really be in a deep ditch. It might take a while for them to realize that you're sincere in this, and that you're not just nagging, you're not trying to manipulate. They'll eventually give an inch, and maybe they'll give a mile. And you might find that you're actually able to trust each other again over time. It might take a while to do. Now, there's a caveat to this. If your relationship is with someone who's a narcissist, someone who absolutely has refused to apologize or be honest at any point in their life, if this is someone who simply has too much pride or they're too narcissistic or self-absorbed to be honest, it's not going to happen. Very, very rare that such a person can ever be honest. And if you can't be honest, there cannot be trust in the relationship. You don't actually have trust in the relationship. There's something else holding your relationship together, but it isn't trust. Whatever it is, it's not trust. If you'd like it to be trust, you might have to reconsider the relationship and what your motivations for getting into that relationship were. Chances are there's a lot of insecurity on your side of the equation that pulled you into that relationship. The way to get that security back, the way to get that clarity back is to first start noticing what drew you into the relationship. And these are shortcuts. These are the shortcuts that we've programmed into our lives that have created, these are emotional shortcuts that have created the type of relationship that we're in all likelihood. So in order to get a sense of what shortcuts do for you, if you're good at writing with your right hand, write a sentence with your right hand, and then try writing a sentence with your left hand. Consciousness is like writing with your left hand. Shortcuts is like writing with your right hand. That's how you develop awareness, as you need to start practicing with the left hand, with your offhand, whatever it is. You'll notice how burdensome it is and how difficult it is and how your brain really has to work so hard to do the simplest thing. But during that time, you're consciously aware of what you're doing. And that's the key. And the more you practice it, the more flexible your brain will become and the more ingenious it will become. You will develop, what I can say is they will still be shortcuts, but they'll be very flexible. Like I learned how to use Japanese chopsticks with my right hand and my left hand. I learned how to write with my right hand and my left hand. And I learned how to do all my martial arts with my right hand and my left hand. And the reason for that was I was trying to explore that feeling where the brain is stretching, where it's working hard to grasp something. It's alive and aware in the moment, even if it's bumbling its way through. But that's going to bring out an incredible brilliance within you over time. Most importantly, it's going to bring out a brilliance in your relationships. You might find that you no longer argue so much or at all. You might find that you have tremendous intimacy in your relationships and trust, and your life will change dramatically. And so that brings me to the end of the video. I know that a lot of people are suffering from relationship issues. We argue a lot and we don't have the intimacy that we want in our relationships. Share this video with friends, like it, make some comments. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. You can write them in the comment section. But share these videos with your friends, because this simple thing about shortcuts, knowing what it is that we've done and all the function we have is found in these shortcuts, but all the dysfunction we have is found in those same shortcuts. Knowing that is the first step. And finally, I'd like to remind you of the Warriors Meditation, a live and on-demand course that I teach every day. They're short, sweet lessons, 15 minutes. In the description, click on the link, type in August 2019 for your discount code. You get a free month off. Love to see you there.